One of the very first mistakes we make when it comes to creativity is seeing it as completely tied up with the arts. A second big mistake is waiting for a spark of inspiration to seize us before we can be creative. Another mistake is to believe that creativity is merely a talent. We have it or we don't. If this is true, why then have multiple international organisations and cultural groups cited it as one of the most important things we each need to develop for our future survival on planet Earth? Join me for this short taster lecture into creativity in education and why we need to have a radical relook at what it really should be about. Kia ora, I'm Anita Mortlock, a Senior Lecturer in Education at Te Herenga Waka, Victoria University of Wellington. The famous educator Rudolf Steiner argued that human beings needed to develop their creativity in as many domains as possible in order to feel the wholeness of their being. This idea of development implies that creativity is not something we are born with or merely inherit from our families, but is something that we can actively cultivate. One of the prevailing ideas is that our creativity, our playfulness, is wounded from childhood experiences and across our life as we receive judgments about whether our creative expression is good or not. This is an idea based on worth, i.e., creative works have worth in that someone might want to buy them or fund them. But if we take the idea of monetary worth out of the equation and start to look at creativity as expression, we start to build a completely different picture about worth. For some of us, our perception of our personal creativity can be fragile. If this is the case, how do we protect, nurture, and enhance children's creativity in our early childhood care centres and schools? The simple answer is that children need adults who have claimed or reclaimed their creativity and worked on healing their creative wounds. Imagine being able to claim your creativity whilst freeing yourself from difficult feelings such as shame, embarrassment, or frustration. One way to do this is to examine what creativity actually is and dispel many of the myths that surround creativity. While there are hundreds of definitions about what creativity is, my favourite describes creativity as an encounter or a way in which a person relates to the world. Creativity moves us beyond what is to what could be. It is an ability to see potential and to follow it up, bringing something into being. Sawyer wrote that through the centuries, Europeans have held on to different conceptions of creativity. Artists have been thought of as poorly paid tradespeople and as divinely inspired geniuses. There hasn't been a single historically continuous definition of creativity. And certainly Dacey and Lennon would say that creative practices are influenced by personality traits such as tolerance for risk-taking, cognitive traits such as divergent thinking, micro-societal traits such as where you live, and macro-societal traits such as education. All of these come together in ways that enable or block our creativity, and therefore even how we encounter the world. We form habits around our creative expression that might be positive or negative. According to Eric Maisel, perhaps one of the most preeminent contemporary scholars on creativity, we can trick ourselves with particular habits. For instance, many of us have grown up in a society where mistakes are perceived badly. Therefore, we do not like making mistakes. This is a trick. We cannot have creativity unless we're able to joy in making mistakes and be curious about what opportunities mistakes might enable. Another point Maisel makes so beautifully is that when we create and we feel good about it, we might desire someone else to witness our creativity. We can see this with young children who say, "Look at my picture," or "Look at what I can do." Perhaps what a child is really saying in that moment is, "Witness my expression." The response of the other person matters a great deal. How often do we respond with disengagement because our focus is elsewhere? Or with disingenuous praise, "That's so good," or with judgment? What is it? Our judgment comes through in subtle ways in our behaviour, such as determining which criteria to use for deciding when a picture is good enough for the fridge or not. What if, however, we fostered a societal culture where people's expression of their creativity was really held well? One thing we are not taught well in many neoliberal societies is how to receive someone's creativity. What if we developed practices and responses to each other's creativity that did not immediately jump into, is it good? And instead asked, what are you expressing here? The field of creativity is rich if tricky. I know from my own research that freeing ourselves from negative stories and blocks is difficult work, but worth it. And it might be singularly the best way to encourage and protect young children's creativity. We can enhance our creativity by permitting its full expression. When we understand how to receive the creative expression of others, we might also be able to free their creativity. Study for a Bachelor of Education teaching at Te Herenga Waka, Victoria University of Wellington.